Yeah, but like 1776 was the original Brexit, before Brexit was cool, right?
Yeah,
Oh,
that's hilarious.
hey, welcome to the Bitcoin Beat with Shaun and Jeff. I'm Shaun. It's my co-host Jeff. Jeff, I'm pretty excited today. We are kind of following up on a conversation we started out in Vegas about a month or two ago, right?
Yeah, we met Satoshi Nakamoto there, and we have him here on the show with us today.
Well, we're going to bring in Duncan. Duncan's a friend of ours that we had met out in Vegas after the Bitcoin conference 2026. And Duncan, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Can I just pause really quickly? I want to say to the world, when you go out, unscripted evening, you have a few drinks, you just meet people that you immediately be like, if I live next door to these guys, these would be my best friends. These guys are awesome. I had drinks with them. We had a night out in Fremont Street. Best night ever. Just want to leave that there. So really pleased to meet you guys.
Yeah, it was definitely a great night.
Yeah, it was a good night for sure. We could have kept going. We could have definitely kept going.
Yeah, and shout out to the Vegas Bitcoiners. They had organized that rooftop bar get together on top of Circa, and that was a great night. Maybe that'll come up a little bit later in the show too, because that was definitely an epic night. That was probably a highlight of the entire conference, if I'm honest. That venue and hanging out afterwards.
Yeah, I agree. Good Guinness and good company.
So Duncan, so this is Duncan, not spelled like Dunkin' Donuts, right? My understanding is it is Duncan.
That is correct. Yeah.
Well, as opposed to the normal, we don't normally do the whole boring like, who are you? What do you do? We want to know about Duncan. Tell us about you. Why are you in Bitcoin? When did you get in Bitcoin? What's your story?
Okay, so my name is Duncan. As you can tell with my lovely accent, I'm from Texas. I was I was born and raised in Texas. I had British parents who called me Duncan, and then I moved to lovely Texas, from lovely Texas to lovely Lewisham in London when I was 11 years old. So yes, I am Texan, but unfortunately now I speak like, as we say here, a pikey. That's not a derogatory term. It's true. It's how I speak. Anyway, so yeah, I'm Duncan. I've been in Bitcoin since 2011. I found Bitcoin just playing on the internet, really. Haven't looked back. It's the mining that's always got me. I've always played with the computers. And when I learned that I could use computing to make money or mine Bitcoin, I was hooked, and that was 15 years ago. And I've been mining and building miners ever since. And actually, it's now my life. It's a huge part of my life, and I'm really grateful for it for a myriad of reasons. For helping me buy the property that I live in, to meeting great people. It's a really important kind of technology of our modern world, and we're all at the forefront of it. So it's really, really exciting. But yeah, I'm Duncan. Nice to meet you all.
So Duncan,
awesome.
You had shared with us too, one of the things that really kicked off your success in mining and being an engineer, creator, and kind of designer type individual was back in 2019 and 2020 when the lockdowns happened. How did that really start to kick off? Because you said you started 2011, but really right around then you started jumping in deep. It sounds like.
Yeah. So actually, I know a lot of people look back at lockdown and think it was the worst time ever. Being locked in and not going to work, whatever. But for me, I had the best time ever. I like seeing people, but I also just like hanging out in my man cave, just making things. So for me, it was like almost 2 years off work, which was so fun. But all through lockdown, I was still mining. I had S9s running in my garage, and actually, remind me later on to tell you about the S9s and the airplane. It's a story. Okay. I'll tell you about it later. Jot that down. But yeah, so actually having this time during lockdown to actually just be at my computer, develop my CAD skills, my coding skills, my PCB skills, basically design skills, was actually the springboard and catalyst and fuse that had to be lit to allow me now to be where allow me then to be where I am now. So over lockdown, I will keep referencing back here because I have a whole world of stuff here. I had one of these, and it was actually not this exact one. It was a green version. This is a Gecko Science USB stick. And this is a Bitcoin miner, and what you would do, it's quite a difficult kind of point of entry, in as much as you need a powered USB hub. You got to install CG Miner, often on Linux, and it's a bit, it's not intuitive for like the average kind of Joe, as it were, to start mining with one of these. And I always thought I wanted to have a standalone platform that allowed mining to be plug and play. So over lockdown, with one of these, I designed one of these. So this is called, what is now called, the Mars Lander, that is owned now by Bitcoin Merch. At the time, I called it the Solo, and it was quite simply, as you can see, a platform for the Gecko Science Unit. There's a Raspberry Pi in there that runs a full open source Linux Debian stack, USB hub, screen, miner. And this essentially was one of the first kind of standalone, all-in-one, with a node on it, if you wanted to, standalone kind of home Bitcoin miner. But actually, the fact that we had lockdown and I had nothing but time and computing and CAD software and whatever, it allowed me to design that. And actually, I haven't looked back since. I've now, since quit my full-time job as a event kind of engineer and lighting designer in the event space. A company that I started in 2004. Quit that, sold up, and I do this now full-time, just designing home Bitcoin mining stuff. And it was all actually because I had the time over lockdown. So yes, for every kind of people spitting feathers over how horrendous lockdown was, it wasn't. I had a great time, and bring it back as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, you mentioned when we were talking earlier that open source really contributed to a lot of the work that you've done, and your ability to build on top of things that were already created. Open source was a big factor for you in that. And then it kind of proliferated from there, because you built open source technologies and miners that were then used after you had built those. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Excuse me a second. Oh, thanks. Sorry. I'm really sorry, but my dear wife is just sliding in and bringing me a British cup of tea. Look, with my Duncan donut mug. That's what we do here. Doesn't matter what, like the house will be on fire. Hang on, we must have tea.
Hold on, I'm gonna call my wife really quick and let her know she needs to bring up some coffee. Give me a moment.
So I'm sorry to interrupt, but that's just what happens here. So in answer to your question, so I'm a real fan of open source stuff. When I first designed this, I had open source mining wasn't a thing when I designed this. And the Gecko Science stick that's in there is proprietary Gecko Science hardware. It's not open source. When I produced this was not open source. But actually, what happened after talking with Scott, the instigator of BitAxe, when I met him at Mining Disrupt 3 or so years ago, when he kind of made the BitAxe, he told me that he'd seen this and thought, we need more standalone home Bitcoin miners, but I'm going to open source it. And my first initial thought was, open source it? Why would you do that? Like, that's a great idea. It's profits to the name. No, I'm going to open source it. Some of the best projects in the world are open source. Look at Linux, open source. It runs half the world, if not more than the world. And I was like, all right, fair enough. Let him. I just said, good luck. I've got a lot of respect and great friendship with Scott. So like, there's no malice there at all. Like, that was his journey. And actually, the fact that we have open source hardware now. And I will eat my words, when I thought I'm never going to open source this. Had I knowing what I know now, I should have open sourced this from day one. And the reason being is that open source allows a platform for other people who usually or otherwise can't get involved because of the learning hurdles to get involved and develop the skill sets in which they are strong. So, going to turn around again to my pile of stuff. So most of you have heard of the BitAxe, which is this little project, this little thing here, which is what I'm referencing. The fact that it is open source has allowed me, I have miners everywhere. It literally is just like a miners playground here. It's allowed me to make my version, which is, this is the black edition. So what I've done is I've taken all of the Gerber CAD files from this, put them into CAD, and I've made my own LED board. And what happens every time this unit submits a share, you get a pulse of light. It's a visual representation that this is actually interacting with the network. And because I come from a light and design background, I love lighting. I love everything about it. So I try and incorporate that in my kit. And actually, because the BitAxe project was open source, it's allowed me to take my strengths and mold this BitAxe into what I want it to be. If the BitAxe didn't exist, I would think, oh, I want to make this. I have zero clue how to make this from scratch. Other people do. So open source stuff is imperative, in my opinion, for innovation and growth. And without it, the whole industry stagnate.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely have benefited from open source myself, and it's really cool to hear you share that story. When you think of, people getting into the mining space, you usually think about they're getting into it for one of two reasons. One, as a hobby, and the other as an investment. What would you say would be a good expectation to have for an individual miner coming in for the first time? Should they have the expectation that this is an investment, or do you think they should start off with curiosity and experimenting and learning how to mine as a hobby?
Okay. I think, everybody has a different relationship with Bitcoin. Now, if you go to any conference or any event and you tell people, sorry, I just caught my eye. It was a bird anyway. Sorry. So this happens. You live in the British countryside. Like random stuff happens. Everyone has a relationship with Bitcoin. If you go to a conference, people are going to say, mining. What's mining? But these people have been investing money in Bitcoin or some other subsidiary for years. So, in answer to your question, if somebody wants to go in mining and they come to me as the solo mining co and say, I want to make some money, I will say to them, just buy Bitcoin. Just like, you can spend $500 on one of these and make 5 cents a day. The learning process, the learning adventure is priceless. You will learn so much. But actually, from an investment point of view, unless you're really hedging your bets on gambling, lottery mining, solo mining, the best thing you can do in terms of investment is just buy Bitcoin and hold it. Do your own research. I have to say that. Long term, I truly believe that, the numbers, I'm going to just flick my little gimbal. I'm hoping this works. It hasn't worked. Never mind. Up there, I have a little a block ticker, a price ticker that now is saying $63,500. I truly believe that in 3 years' time, we're going to look back at that and think, I need another number on the on that little clock. But that's my opinion. So, back to your point. If someone says investment, I will just say buy Bitcoin. If someone comes to me and says, I want to understand more, or what can I do to support the network, I will say absolutely start mining. And I say one of these little things, set it up, and either solo mine or pool mine, whatever you want to do. And if they then say to me, what's solo mine, what's pool mining, then I'll explain to them solo mining is like playing a lottery. It's I think this is a 1 in 7 million chance a day currently of solo mining a block. Or you pool mine and you get 3 or 4 cents a day in Satoshis, which, actually it's less now because it's it's about that anyway, about 3 or 4 cents a day. But what I say to them is that, most of us watching this talk we're having now will know about the Bitcoin halvings. So if those that don't, every 4 years, the Bitcoin reward halves. So 50, 25, 12 and a half, so 12 and a half, 6 and a quarter, 3 and an eighth, and so on. So the amount of Satoshis that we mine with one of these today, we may laugh at. But in about 80 years' time, well, most of us are long gone, the block reward then is the same amount of Satoshis that we are mining today. So when you look at it like that, in 80 years' time, our great-great-grandchildren will say, Granddad, what do you mean you could have mined this amount of Bitcoin every day? You didn't. You're crazy. It's like, yeah, fair point. Yeah. Just like when we think now, we think 10,000 Bitcoin pizza guy who had his 2 pizzas. Back then he was just like, yeah, free pizza. Now we think, well done for like kickstarting a revolution. Kickstarting the Bitcoin is money, but actually you're an idiot. Yeah. But it's the same. It's the same thing. We are now with one of these in holding the same power 10,000 Bitcoin pizza guy had. When you look at it in the block reward in the future. So, the journey of Bitcoin mining, Bitcoin mining is here to stay. I truly believe us as Bitcoin miners and us 3 on here and everybody watching this have a responsibility. If we care about Bitcoin, we should be doing 3 things. We should be running our own node. We should be solo mining to our own node. And we should be self-custodying all of our Bitcoin. When you buy Bitcoin with Revolut or any of these online, eToros, I don't know what the US equivalents are, but when you buy these Bitcoin, like if you say to them, I want my private keys, they're going to laugh at you. So actually what you're doing, you're just buying a column on their spreadsheet. You're not buying Bitcoin. You're not holding Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Bitcoin, it's that. So one last point. It's that triangle of self-sovereignty. Your own open source mining hardware, and open source because you can validate, because you can trust, because you can verify. Your open source mining hardware, your own node, which is easy to spin up. You can do it on a Raspberry Pi or a little Linux box or a little crap Windows, Intel i5, and your own wallet. That is that triangle of self-sovereignty and decentralization, and we should all be doing that without fail.
I love that. Yeah, it's something that we talk a lot about on this show, and you kind of used a different term, the triangle of self-sovereignty. I really like that image because as someone who has been in the Bitcoin space a while, you know that conviction is not borrowed. It's earned through hard work and time and doing your own research. And if you think about like the consensus mechanism and the balance of powers in the Bitcoin ecosystem, you have three different groups that balance those powers out. And one is the miner group. The other two you mentioned would be the Bitcoin hodlers and self-custody, and then the node operators. So in my experience, I can agree with that. As I learn more about Bitcoin, I'm incentivized to actually understand the technology that manages and runs and supports the network and secures the network. So getting into Bitcoin mining was a hobby for me, but the education benefits from what I learned solidified that conviction in order for me to continue to stack sats and buy more and accumulate and self custody and do things like that. So I'm with you. I think it would behoove everyone to learn how to hobby mine Bitcoin. I kind of wonder though, if some of the hurdle is like, they look at it in terms of difficulty. Like it's easy to buy Bitcoin. Okay. It's a little bit easier to self-custody. Now I'm considering running a node. Oh, that sounds really technical and complicated. Now you're asking me to learn how to mine Bitcoin. Man, I'm not there. How do you get somebody from buying Bitcoin to experimenting with hobby mining?
Okay. So, if I said to you, so I assume both of you drive cars, right? So if I say to you, right, your first driving lesson, right, we're going to drive a Lamborghini around a racetrack today on your first driving lesson. That's not going to go terribly well, is it? You're going to be put off. You're going to be scared. You're going to be, you might have a great time until you hit a wall and you think, well, this isn't for me. It's a really rough analogy, but the same thing applies to Bitcoin. So, there is a lot to learn. And I'd like to think that I understand it because I've been in it. I've been playing with it since 2011. So, but it's taken, like, the thing is, every day for me, I'm still learning stuff. And if I'm not learning, I feel like it's been a day wasted. So anyone that wants to get into Bitcoin, you don't have to understand how it works. You don't have to think, right, I need a node and my own wallet, and I need seed phrases, and I need a hardware wallet, and I need this miner and that miner. And at that point, you just think, like, the learning curve is too much. You just start, like, but that's what happens. That's human nature. So, the easiest thing you can do if you want to start mining, buy one of these really small, simple plug and play miners, plug it in, learn about it. Plug it in into your Bitcoin, your public wallet address. So when you solo mine a block, I'll come to that in a minute. When you solo mine a block, that's where it gets paid. And you think, cool, I've got the hang of this. I'm going to buy some more. Oh, cool, I can see that I'm stacking my hash rate. And at that point, naturally, once you've figured out the first step, you take the second step. It's natural human evolution. It's it's like kids when they're learning to crawl and toddle and run and so on. It's that. So you don't, like Rome was built in a day. You don't have to do everything immediately, but it starts with one step. And actually, the easiest way to do it is that, or any of these Bitcoin miners. Like that is a Bitcoin miner. That's the new Atlas Pool version. But that is a plug and play Bitcoin miner. You plug it in, it creates a hotspot, you connect to it on your phone, it says, cool, let's start mining, click done. Oh, cool, I'm mining. Like, it's, these have been designed to be idiot proof. or as we call them, granny proof.
Like you said, they're easier than ever. Like the first ones you were talking about took a lot of effort, knowledge to be able to use. Now they literally are plug and play. You know, before we started recording our show today, we were talking a little offline about with the price changing, some of the difficulty adjustments, without getting too deep into the weeds. Why is now possibly even an easier time, profitability wise or luck wise, to get into solo mining?
Yeah, that's a fair question. So the like historically, the price of Bitcoin and the network difficulty often run hand in hand. So there's lots of industrial mines all over the world that are paying for electricity. So you know, if you run an industrial mine, you're fortunate enough to own a waterfall that power's not costing you any money. Then great, just keep ramping up. But if you're in a position where you're actually paying for electric and selling some of your mined Bitcoin to pay your electricity bills, with the drop in the value, a lot of these mines you will find have to turn themselves off because they can't afford to operate. They will have a threshold. So when Bitcoin hits 75,000 again, they'll turn back on because otherwise they are running at a loss. Yeah, a lot of them have a reserve to stay on, but some of them don't. So what happens when the big mines turn their units off because Bitcoin price is tanking and it's their costs are outrunning their earnings, the Bitcoin network difficulty automatically adjusts and decreases. So what that means is that at the moment, I think the difficulty at the moment is something like 135 trillion or something. It might be worth looking at. But I mean, either way, it's kind of irrelevant. But like in 10 days time or whatever the next halving is, it might go down to 126 trillion. I'm speculating here, but that's generally what happens. And and then it might go down again and again and again, or it might go up. We don't know. But historically, when the price tanks, the difficulty drops, and it means for a solo miner, it means your odds increase because it's easier, statistically, it's easier to mine a block because the mathematical equation, it's not mathematical, I'll use that phrase, is easier.
Yeah. So you're talking about the difficulty adjustment, which is a beautiful thing, by the way, that you created. I mean, Satoshi created in the network. Sorry, didn't mean to spill the beans again. But it is a beautiful thing because essentially the difficulty level adjustment is a self-regulating part of the protocol that requires zero intervention from an authority. It's a programmatic, scheduled difficulty adjustment. So can you break down for our viewers what exactly is the difficulty adjustment? How does it work? And then with the cherry on top, do you think that the difficulty adjustment at, I think what's it, 2016 blocks, which is approximately every 2 weeks, do you think that is a good enough amount of time to adjust the hash rate, that difficulty?
Sure. Okay, so first question, what is essentially the difficulty adjustment? So the Bitcoin network was programmed to every 10 minutes issue a Bitcoin block. So let's say there's 1,000 people mining, the difficulty is really easy, and when all these miners, wherever they are, come online, if these miners are finding them too quickly, let's say every 8 minutes, the Bitcoin network sees that on the timestamp of time block solved. Those mathematical problems that we mentioned that aren't real mathematical problems, but anyway, those mathematical problems are too easy. I'm going to make them a little bit more difficult. So it then adjusts based on what it thinks it needs to be. So then when the difficulty adjusts, it might be, I've made it too difficult. These miners now are finding them on average every 11 minutes. I'll make it easier. Difficulty goes down. So then what happens is that with the 21 million Bitcoin that can ever be generated, it's not like if all of the world mining came online immediately and mined all the Bitcoin immediately, well, that breaks everything, doesn't it? So the fact that you've got, 50, it was the original block reward was 50 Bitcoin every 10 minutes. We can, I think it's about 2140, 2142, something like that, when the very last Bitcoin block can ever be mined, because that's them all done. And we know that because of the 10-minute block reward, and the difficulty will go up and down all the way along that journey to ensure that the collective amount of mining across the whole planet, regardless if there's loads of it or very little of it, the difficulty will adjust up or down to make sure that those blocks on average are found every 10 minutes. So in answer to your second question about do I think 2 weeks is long enough? Absolutely. Because if it was too short, Well, I mean, like, technically it could be shorter, but actually, if it was longer than that, then you run the risk of actually no one finding anything for ages, or you finding them too quickly, and then actually it just starts smashing into the Bitcoin supply. So actually having it adjusted every 2 weeks, I think, is a really fair compromise, in as much as, you know, it's not running away with itself and funding too quickly, and also, you know, it's not funding quick enough, or we're only waiting 2 weeks. See what I mean? Like, yeah. So, you know, I'm sure there was a logical decision between it should be about 2 weeks. I don't know what that logical decision is, but it works. And, you know, here we are 16 years later.
So do me a favor, tie that, before we jump into kind of some of the things you're doing now, I want to ask you about something you said a few minutes ago, kind of in relation to the hash rate and difficulty and why somebody should solo mine. You said, if you solo mine, you will find a block. What do you mean by that?
So solo mining is like playing a lottery. So if you played the lottery, let's say all of us live for infinite number of years, and you played the lottery every week, you will eventually win the lottery. Statistically, you have to. There's a 1 in 7 million chance. So with a BitAxe, there's a 1 in 7 million chance a day. If you could live 7 million days, statistically, you should solo mine a Bitcoin block. So what I'm saying is that, yeah, you will. You might be dead. So there's no guarantee you're going to mine a block in this lifetime.
So eventually, you're saying there's a chance?
There's a chance.
A guaranteed chance, just not, will I be alive by then? But if you don't mind, I want to dig into a little bit about what you're doing right now, because we talked a little bit about how you got started, some of the difficulty and how miners needed a little bit of effort and knowledge and learning. Now they're plug and play. But you're kind of focusing on a specific segment of the market, and that's with home miners. And running a miner at home, you put it beautifully. It either needs to have utility or be beautiful. I want you to talk about your thesis with that, what you're focusing on, and what you're doing differently than most people.
All right. Well, thank you for this opportunity. So, you know, I'll spin back to lockdown. As you know, my first step was building a plug and play miner. That wasn't a whole mass of wires, which is why that thing exists. But, you know, just like anything with evolution of design and evolution of kind of mindset, now, because Bitcoin mining is here to stay, you know, what I think is really beautiful is that when Bitcoin mining started in 2009, it was very much about the individual, the home computing. We were doing it with CPUs, and it moved to GPUs, and very quickly it then went industrial, which knocked most of the small people off the market. It was just, you know, Bitmain, the Antminers, the Butterfly Labs, you know, it just got industrial. Now it's come full circle that, you know, because of things like this and the BitAxe, it's now more accessible than ever. It's come full circle back at home. So because now I am genuinely passionate about Bitcoin mining, now, because we are full circle, is that my kid playing the drums or yours? Yeah,
it's a good beat.
It is a good beat. Is it my end or your end?
I believe it's your end.
Can't be. Can you hear it?
I don't hear it.
I do. I honestly thought it was maybe your BitAxe was running off a battery or something.
No, my kid's on a driving lesson. He's not here. Anyway, whatever it is, it's cool. Sorry, he just threw me. So what we're saying, so Bitcoin mining has come full circle. We are now back at home. The fuse has been lit for home mining, for home accessible plug and play mining. But where it falls down is that, you know, we have a saying here. I'm happily married. We have a saying here. Any miner on the shelf needs to be wife proof. Sorry, Scott, that's not wife proof. So what I'm doing now is that I'm really passionate about design, about product design, about CAD. You know, I own a metal shop in China. I love working in metal. I love designing. I love circuit design. So my thing now, because Bitcoin mining is here to stay, we need home Bitcoin mining to be one of two things to succeed. It needs to be beautiful or have utility, or better still, both. What I mean by utility is that a Bitcoin miner, so let's take this Bitforge Nano Ghost Edition. This is the Atlas Pool Edition that I've been working on. So this is 40 watt at the wall. You get 2.6 terahash out of that. 40 watt at the wall. A Bitcoin miner is 100% heat efficient. If it uses 40 watt at the wall, it's outputting 40 watt of heat, regardless of what the miner is. Like, it's just 1 for 1. You are getting heat out of this unit. So the utility in Bitcoin mining is heat recovery. So, for example, going over to my pile of stuff, I have something called a Canon Nano 3S. Have you guys seen these before?
Not that
I've
one.
seen
No.
a Can-Am. They're like side by sides you take out into the sand dunes, but I haven't seen that one.
So this is the Nano 3S. This is a 6 terahash miner. It's 140 watt, and this has been specifically designed to be a 140 watt heater. It's almost silent. It's really beautiful. And it just works, and that is something that Canon have also identified. Actually, Bitcoin mining here to stay. It needs to be beautiful. That is a really, really nice, well-built bit of kit. There's a controllable LED in it, and actually, like genuinely, I've got one under my desk in my 450-year-old house, which is made of stone, keeping my toes warm. And that is a true story. Yes, I'm turning into a bit of an old man. I like having warm toes, but that's a prime example. That thing generates 7 or 8 cents a day in Bitcoin, and it's keeping my feet warm. Like that's a win. So that's the utility of Bitcoin mining. We can scale that up on an industry point of view. So in the UK, we have wet radiators. I don't know if you can see that on your crop. Okay, so in my house, I have 24 radiators in my house, and we have a boiler that pumps about 1,500 liters. No, it's about 15. No, so what's that? About 600 gallons. Actually, 2,400 liters, 600 gallons. That's my my ADHD rolling with me. We've got about 600 gallons of water pumping around the house. So actually, what I'm working on now is a radiator replacement. So radiator off, new radiator on, that has up to 6 Bitcoin hash boards that clamp onto the radiator. And then you put this nice aesthetic cover on, so it looks like a radiator. But what you're doing is you're putting up to 3 kilowatt into your central heating system. So in the summer, you turn your central heating pump on, and it's dissipating that heat through 24 radiators across the house. You're not going to notice that because there's so much water. Mm-hmm. In the winter, you're adding 3 kilowatt to your central heating system. So my oil burner, we burn kerosene here, my oil burner doesn't have to work as hard. So again, that's utility. So, there are so many opportunities for home Bitcoin mining to coexist in existing infrastructure. You've got immersion heating, your underfloor heating, you've got hot tubs, you've got hot air, you've got convection, you've got boilers. You can't do things like kettles or toasters because the inrush of electricity is just too much, and you can't generate, you can't do 400 Celsius, 400 Fahrenheit immediately because you just burn the chips out. So anything that's lower passive heating can absolutely be recovered and generated in the form of Bitcoin mining. So what I'm doing is I'm focusing a lot on the utility. I'm not going to use the word utilitarian, but that's the utility side of Bitcoin mining. So I am working with a company at the moment. We've just patented a wet radiator that will work in UK and Europe, and also small mini heaters. But the other side of the coin is the beautiful miners. So if you don't have something, if you have a miner that doesn't have utility in terms of heat, it needs to be beautiful. So, for example, I'll reference the Bit4Channel Ghost Edition again. So, it's a side story. I did send both of these guys one of these, but unfortunately FedEx have let the side down. So hopefully it'll arrive mid video. But anyway. But what it is, this is a small unit. There's glass here. There is a model. It's a 3D printed model in here. Actually, in here is a model of Atlas because it is the Atlas full version. But the other version, the Ghost of Satoshi, just won. It's the world's first miner that's ever won a design award outside the Bitcoin space. It came silver in the London Design Awards for product design. Now that to me tells me that actually people are paying attention to Bitcoin mining, and the fact that it has been acknowledged as something beautiful that deserves to be on the shelf, to me is a win. But aside from that, this, as far as kind of looking good and having a glowing statue, yes, it mines Bitcoin, doesn't do anything else. But where it becomes interesting, that guy there, can you see that on your shot?
Yep.
So that, I can't zoom in, unfortunately, but that is the ACS BitAxe Touch. In there is a BitAxe. That's something I designed with ACS out in Texas. Full touchscreen infrastructure. The latest software has Home Assistant integrated into it. You can do lots of kind of home automation control. It gives you your time, alarm clock, Bitcoin price, and so on. So immediately, yes, it's in its infancy, and we are working on a version with audio and microphone. You can talk to it and whatever. So it becomes like an epicenter. Furthermore, a version that we're working on with science. I've got stuff everywhere. Another iteration that will have a node built into it. So these Bitcoin miners, yes, can have utility. Yes, they can be industrial. But for them to succeed in the home, they need to be beautiful and have some sort of utility. Like that, it does more than just mine. I come in here in the morning, I look at the Bitcoin price, I swipe over, I can read the tweet of the day. There's loads I can do on it. So what I'm pushing in the Bitcoin space are those two things, utility and beauty.
To dig in, yeah, it absolutely does. And it kind of brings me to another topic when you talked about this wet radiator system, about some of the utility too. I had a conversation, and we talked a little bit offline about the Midwest Bitcoin Summit coming up in September in Ohio. And I had a conversation where they were talking about some of the miners in Indiana and Ohio about being able to use the heat from Bitcoin mining to heat not just like wet radiator systems, water heaters, and things along those lines. And one of the key things that I thought of when I was mentioning this to Andrew was something you said, and it's about messaging. You have a good mindset about how you can get this into the hands of everyday people. People like Jeff and I, really anybody probably watching, we want to share Bitcoin with everybody. So we have this idea that we're going to orange pill the world, but we start with what hooks us. And we talk about Bitcoin, we talk about scarcity, we talk about verifiability, we talk about all these good ideas about Bitcoin, but most people start drowning out the minute we start talking because we're so energetic about something technical. You said something when we chatted in Vegas that I've been seeing in a lot of different areas in the space that I think are beneficial. You want to market this as a wet radiator system that pays for itself. And that's the message. Absolutely. You don't start with Bitcoin. What's your mindset around that? We had a really great conversation about how you do that, because it's a different way to orange pill people.
Yeah. So, if I say, let's step away from the wet radiator thing at the moment, because, replacing a whole boiler is a bit of a niche thing. We all need heating in our house. So let's just say we need a new convection fan radiator, or a heater for our garage, greenhouse, kitchen, whatever. Yeah, and that's something we can all relate to across the world, because most of us have electricity, and we have the need for a fan heater. Agreed? Mm-hmm. So with that, if I say to my wife, I'm picking on my wife here because she's the other person that runs the house. If I say, we need to get we need a heater because the window's broken or whatever. If I say to her, I want to buy a Bitcoin miner that's a heater, she's like, why do we need another Bitcoin miner? Like, come on, like, for fuck's sake, just get a heater. All right, fair enough. Sorry, I don't mean to curse. It's a London thing. It's a UK thing. I'll try to rein that in. She'll say to me, why do we need another Bitcoin miner? All right, fair enough. If I say, we need another heater, yes, I agree, we need another heater. Hang on, this one mines Bitcoin, and because it's generating Bitcoin, it's stacking 30 cents a day in Bitcoin. Well, that's not very much. Insert my comment before about stacking sets for the future. Or, if it may be a really efficient heater that's generating $1 a day. Regardless, if it's generating a cent a day or $1 a day, well, that's a cent or $1 more than you would have had if you just had a normal heater. Fair? Yep. So it's about flipping the narrative. It's, let's get a Bitcoin miner that does this. No, let's get this thing that we need. Let's get this new washing machine that has a heating element that we need. Well, let's pay the extra $50 because that mines Bitcoin, and that's going to offset our electricity by $100 a year. That makes sense. So product first, Bitcoin second.
Yeah, and I think that applies to so many different things. Another avenue, there's this X space that Jeff and I will jump into for Bitcoin today, and there was one moment where we were talking to a person out, I think it was in Pennsylvania, that had orange pilled a couple businesses. And he said one of the keys is not jumping, hey, do you take Bitcoin? You should take Bitcoin because it'll help you save your going down that narrative. Instead, he's like, especially with Square merchants who don't realize they're already in Bitcoin, hey, are you using this new payment rail system that doesn't have any fees? And instantly they're like, that's magic to my ears. It's all about the messaging in the same light that applies to so many different avenues.
Yeah, you're right. That's very profound. And I think if you can, like, not desensitize, like if you can make it less complex, because you're right. When you start saying you should do this because Bitcoin, really, like, people just like glaze over. It's just that look. It's like the orange glaze. But if you can, literally, as you just rightly said, I love that. Are you trying this new payment method that doesn't have fees? Ding, they're listening. Love that.
Well, what else? Let's see. We have. I was looking at your website too, and I'll pull it up. I don't think you'll be able to see it, but our people at home will be able to see your site.
I have seen my website once or twice.
Right, I hope so. And there was this particular miner on there called the Nerd Ox Axe. And a friend of ours had just gotten one, I think from a different vendor, but this is like 8 times the hash rate of BitAxe, if I remember right. And it's interesting how you talk about open sourcing a lot of these things and how it can help foster more innovation. You're tying with Scott at BitAxe, if they don't know who that is, getting some inspiration from some of the things you've done back around the lockdown time. You said you changed your mindset. If you could go back in the past, all the things you were doing to open source it. This particular the Nerd Ox Axe, this is not your design, right? This is actually somebody else's.
Design. No, so this is I want to say PMax. I want to say Bitmaker. There's a few people that have worked on it. That's not my design at all. And I'm sorry to anyone listening if I haven't credited you. I can't remember who makes all this stuff. But with that, so without the BitAxe as a platform, that wouldn't exist because there was so much learning that allowed that to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, your website also includes like basic information on how to run a miner, right? Including how to connect it to a node. So you're not only providing the hardware, you're providing an educational service for people who are serious about learning how to at-home mine. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you walk your customers through this journey, how it's empowered them to really understand what Bitcoin is? And what's that like? How does that feel as someone who's
okay, so if you look at my website now, the bottom right, I have my little WhatsApp icon. Like that is genuinely my phone. That's not going to some dude across the world. That's not an AI bot. I don't use any AI bots. I will engage with every single person that contacts me. Providing I'm awake, I'll engage with them. So, because I have been playing, and I keep using the word playing because I've been playing in Bitcoin for so long. I like to think I have a fair amount of knowledge that I want to share. My other career progression of my other career path that I was going to look at when I was a teenager was teaching because I love teaching. I love inspiring. I love educating. So actually, I didn't do teaching. As I said, I went off and did lighting design and playing. Here we go again. But actually, in terms of the customer journey, a lot of people will come to me and say, I want a BitAxe and what I'm doing. It's like, cool, there you go, take it. And if 3 months' time they say it's broken, it's like, cool, what's the problem? Here, have a new one. There's always that constant support. And I know it's cliche, but I have so much respect for every one of my customers. If they message me with a problem a year down the line, I'm not going to say, well, you're 3 months past your warranty, jog on. No, I'm going to support that. Because actually, for me, honestly, the website is not about making any money. This whole website exists by accident. And honestly, I wish, my wife and I joke, I wish I called it minor inconvenience.
That's brilliant.
The reason why this website exists is I do a ton of design work. Sorry, I will get to your question about the customer journey, but just a quick kind of fun snippet. I did a ton of work for Gecko Science. SideHack is a really good friend of mine, as is his business partner Iris. Let's give them a shout out. So much respect and love for those guys. They owed me, some funds, which we agreed actually just pay me in hardware. So I got tons of R9s and sticks, whatever. I was like, what am I going to do with all this stuff? And I said to my kids, I said, look, you want to learn about e-commerce? I've got 2 teenage boys that are now 20 and 17, but at the time, 4 years ago, do the maths. It was like, look, let's start a site, let's build it together, we'll self-host it, do some coding. This is before AI was around. Let's jump in at the deep end and do this. Yeah, that'd be really fun. Well, that lasted about a month. So they cleared off, and then they've lost interest, and now here I am, kind of bag holding with the solo mining codes. Like, well, I guess I better run this thing then, because I've got 50 grand's worth of Gecko Science gear, and then the BitAxe was coming to market, and then I'm designing, but actually, it was all, as Bob Ross would say, a happy little accident. That actually I love it now. Because I use the Solo Mining Co now as a platform for my own innovation. On the main page, if you go halfway down, there's a page on Am GPIO. That's my design name, Am GPIO. And all the stuff that I design, I put there as a I made this because I haven't got anyone else to talk to, so I just put it out into the universe. So, circling back round to the whole kind of selling stuff thing, and the minor inconvenience, every time an order comes in, I'm like, oh, fuck's sake, I need to go to the post office. I need to do all do you see what I mean? Like, so, but actually I love it. And this is to every customer, potential or existing. I love it when I get a message saying, hey, it's broken, or, what do you think about this setup? What your overclocked? Because I love engaging with these people. And occasionally I will on WhatsApp leave them a voice note. These people I don't know, and we chat and whatever. And like, I'll then do a talk or a conference, and these people will come up to me, hey, Dunk, you help me, and like we then meet these people, or I meet these people, and then they become friends. And actually, like, I've made, like, I kid you not, 3 local friends within a mile from my house that bought stuff from my website. I was like, that's my village. I was like, so I phoned the guy. I said, look, this is a bit weird, but like, I'm Duncan. And he was like, oh my God. And I drop it around there, and we go to the pub, we have a beer, and now we're pals. But it's that kind of stuff. So for me, it's not about a website and selling shit. It's a platform that I can just use for my own design stuff. It's a platform that when I design cool stuff, like new stuff, like this is a nerd QX that I've designed a whole LED board around the back. When I design stuff, it gives me a platform just to put it out on the world. And honestly, every customer that I buy from, I know I'm not the cheapest, and I do that deliberately. 1, because I get my relentless support, but 2, like, as I said, like, for me, it's not box pushing. Everything that I sell on my website, I have built in some capacity, like every single thing. Like Mine Coffee, for example. This is the world's first USB mining coffee warmer. This is a terahash of mining. It uses English walnut, a solid block of aluminum, with 4 mining chips, and it uses the solid block as heat dissipation. So when you put your mug on it, if you have a full cup of coffee, the more liquid you have in that mug, it's pulling more heat away, which increases your hash rate. So this is something that I designed between myself and Gecko Science. I build these, like, I build everything on my site in some capacity. Every single thing that I sell, I've built. I don't box push. So that's why I'm more expensive than China and everyone else, because actually you're getting my blood, sweat and tears that goes into it. And then
not only that, you're getting almost like a white glove service with you, which is nice. I mean, if you've integrated your own WhatsApp into your website, people are obviously coming there to purchase their miners, and then able to interact with you right there on the spot rather than some other customer service agent. So it's a very personal white glove service that you offer to your clients, which should come at a price, frankly, but it also goes to show, like, the fact that you've been in this space for so long, what it takes to start an at-home mining operation. You are the expert here. You're not offshoring that expertise for someone else to handle. You're bundling it up so that your clients can come to you for that white glove service and know exactly what they need to do to connect it to their node, to connect it to their wallet, to get it up and running. So I think that really alleviates some of the learning curve that a lot of people are faced with from the beginning, and often, afraid of too. So you're lowering that bar to entry by offering all these services and your expertise on top of that. But I got to ask you, going back to, like, I'm looking at your X page right now, the Solo Mining Co., and you mentioned it earlier, Am GPIO. What is GPIO?
So GPIO is an abbreviation. It means General Purpose Input Output. And I know where it comes from, in terms of my name, Am GPIO. When I was a teenager at school, we were playing around with PRC microcontrollers. And I was in the class, and very quickly I was getting LEDs to flash. I was getting server arms to move, like, whilst the rest of the class weren't keeping up. And my teacher said, "Oh, you're like Duncan. You're like a GPIO pin. You can just get it done." I was like, "Yeah, cool." And it kind of stuck. Interestingly, when I left school, the same teacher was my kind of electronics, shop class, woodworking, that sort of stuff. He became a very, very close friend. Unfortunately, he died a couple of years ago, but he stayed with me when I was doing the Bitcoin stuff over lockdown. He said, I was talking about design names and stuff, and he said to me, he said, everything you design, you need to put your signature on so people know it's you. And I was like, well, I don't want to put Duncan. He was like, no, you need an artist name. I was like, huh. And I thought about it. And then he said to me, this was Alan. I'm gonna shout out Alan Youngman in case he's listening up there or wherever he is. He said to me, "You're GPIO. Like, you can get this done. Like, think about it." And I was like, "I am GPIO. That's it." So it's kind of, very kind of, loose, but that's essentially what happened. And it's just stuck. It's a bit cheesy, but like, I don't want to sign my circuits Dunk. So it's I am GPIO is a logo, it's a brand, and it's only me that makes that stuff. And unfortunately, I am NDA'd on a lot of stuff. But if you took apart about a dozen mainstream miners across the world, as in big ones, my logo is on a lot of those hashboards. But I can't talk about them. You'll just have to do your own research.
Top secret.
Top secret.
Don't worry, Shaun's the cheesiest one out of all of us here, so he has a high bar to.
That's true. I do have two questions, but before, you talked about some people local to you that you ended up selling some equipment to, and finding out there's people there. I gotta take a moment too. Like, our analytics on our podcast actually do show that we have some viewers from the UK that tune in every week, and I'd like to give them just a quick shout out and thank them, for watching. So, thank you for watching. Whether you're watching on the telly at home, or in your flat, or drinking a bottle of water. Sorry,
bottle of water.
What I meant to say.
Smoking a bag.
Bottle of water. Or on your cell at the pub while you're having a pint. It's mental that you're viewing our show, and we appreciate that. Duncan, anything you want to say to your mates that may be tuning in?
Well, if James, Scott, or Paul are listening, shall we go to the pub?
You had mentioned earlier to bring up about the S9s on the airplane. What's that? What's that all about?
Right. Okay. So referencing back to my friend Alan that I mentioned, his son St. John Youngman, I'll reference him. He won't ever watch this because he's doing avionics and aviation. But he before Alan died, he said to me, "Oh, Singe wants to build a plane. Do you want to build a plane with him?" Because up to this point, I'd rebuilt Alan's Land Rover. I'd built a kit car with him. So we, kind of mechanicals. Do you want to build a plane? I was like, what's the worst that could happen? So I'm just going to grab a picture really quick. It's just on my wall. I'm going to yank it off my wall. I'm coming back, I promise. Right. So over lockdown, I built an airplane.
Oh, okay.
So that is a single-seater. It's called a laser. It's based on something called an Edge 540. That is a single-seater aerobatics plane or a stunt plane. So when we were building that, so my friend and I, we built that from scratch. Down to building the engine, all the wings, all the cowling, the canopy, the fabric skinning, everything we built from scratch. So when we were doing the front cowling, this part here around the over the engine and propeller, I had this set up in my garage. It was carbon fiber, and it was a 48-hour cure time for the carbon fiber. We didn't have 48 hours because we just wanted to get on with it. So in my garage at the time, I had 5 S9s running. And at that point, I was pool mining. I was generating about £1,500 a month, paying about £700 in electricity. So it was decent profit. So what I did is I got some ducting S9 straight into the air intake of the cowling, and we cured the carbon fiber in 3 hours using the heat from the S9s.
Dang.
So yeah, true story. I've got photos of it. I'll dig them out and I'll ping them over to you guys. But it was it was again just utility using that heat.
Yeah,
thinking outside the box.
It was good. Sorry, what?
Thinking outside the box. It's essentially like it's the genius behind you, Duncan. Behind Satoshi.
Well, one thing I want to kind of wrap up with a little bit too is thinking forward in the future. We are constantly looking ways to meet up again, and we talk about different conferences and love talking about the things you're designing. What's on the horizon for you? What are you looking to do looking forward?
So I can say I'm in a fortunate position that I now do this full time. I have left my event company that I started some decades ago, and actually the fact that I have the freedom to do this full time, I'm now I'm just really grateful that I'm able to pursue a lot of these things that I've been wanting to do forever. So actually what's coming over the next next 6 months, year, 2 years is real infrastructure geared around the UK's horrendous power costs that allows Bitcoin mining to even work in the home of UK kind of miners. And the thing is, we pay upwards of about 40 cents a kilowatt hour here. It's about what, 28 pence, so about 40 cents a kilowatt hour. And that's ridiculous. But actually, it's that wonderful saying, necessity drives innovation. So as far as I'm concerned, it's necessary for Bitcoin mining to succeed in the home. And actually, for it to succeed in the British homes is a massive challenge. So if we can offset the running costs, with things like heating and stuff that we all have, or if we can, top up the radio system because we need heating, if those opportunities, I know those opportunities are there. And actually now I have the time and resources because I do this full time. I'm really, really excited about getting into this kind of beautiful /home utility mining, built into everything. And actually, again, NDA, can't say much, I can't say whom, but I'm working with a washing machine manufacturer through my contacts of my previous design stuff, that we're working on a washing machine at the moment that preheats the water before the use using Bitcoin mining. So at the moment, a washing machine usually is a cold water. So the ones we have here, cold water intake. It then has an element that heats up the water. Yeah. And then dispense it into the drum and off we go. So, whenever you move a washing machine, it's like, my gosh, this is really heavy because it has a block of cement in it. Well, you take that block of cement out and you have basically a blown, it's like a solid polyethylene, polypropylene water balloon, essentially, the shape of that cement block. Well, if you preheat your water in that balloon, that is the ballast, what then happens when you turn your washing machine on, it then moves that water from that tank into the water system, and then you get the cold water re-top up the ballast. With me so far? Yep. So then therefore you haven't got this massive concrete slab, you've got water that's preheated with the Bitcoin mining process, and that is built into a washing machine from a well-known manufacturer. Now the fact is that well-known manufacturer is paying attention, says it all. So that's what I'm excited about. It just creeping in without us even knowing about it.
That's crazy to hear average 40 cents a kilowatt hour. It's a number I pay attention to just ever since getting a Tesla electric car. I'm looking at the price per kilowatt when everybody's focused on gas. 40 cents is insane for home electricity.
Yeah.
Okay.
And actually, I'm on that. So I run a Tesla here. And actually, charging that is crippling. But I've also just installed another 6 kilowatt of solar on my roof of my outbuilding. So I specifically have that 6 kilowatt of solar specifically for charging the Tesla. I have another. I actually have about 80 kilowatt, which I use for solar powered Bitcoin mining. Which just for a laugh, if you're on my site at the top, the solar mining rig rentals, all of the company returns. So when I get these back, I don't think, whatever. I will repair them. I'll give the client a new unit. I'll repair them, but I don't resell them. I put them in my solar mining rig thing, and people can rent those for like $1 a day.
Okay. I did see that section about renting too on there, and I didn't get a chance to dig into that. What as a side note before we wrap up, what kind of Tesla do you have?
I have a Model 3 all-wheel drive, long-range performance.
Nice. One of the most sold cars in the world.
Oh, they're fun. Like I always was like, no, I want a V8. I want I want the noise. But gas here now is, I want to say,
petrol for those watching.
$12 a gallon is what the equivalent is here now for gas. So actually, when you get in a Tesla, especially the fast one, and slam your foot down, you pin back to the seat. It's like living in a roller coaster. I love it.
Yeah, that's the moment I knew I was going to buy one when I test drove one. So my opinions changed on Tesla quite a bit. Yeah, 100%. Well, excellent. Well, I know Jeff and I are looking forward to reconnecting with you. I know we'll be in Nashville in 2027, so anybody can meet you or Jeff or even me if they so choose to. Maybe even sooner than that, we'll talk about some other ventures, and we'll have to get the band back together. We had a good time out in Vegas.
Yeah. Well, so what I'd ask of you guys is just let me know the next one you're at, and I will do everything in my power to meet you there.
Well, one thing that
hang on. Even if it's a local meetup at a Denny's around the corner from you, and there's only 20 people,
that sounds epic. That sounds really good. I think A quick plug for Midwest Bitcoin Summit. It's a new conference that's just starting. For our viewers at home, we've talked a little bit about it. We're going to talk a little bit more about it. We had an interview with the CEO, the guy that was starting it up. It feels like it's come out of nowhere because it's the first year they're doing it, and the CEO is somebody who generally isn't on social media a lot, so he doesn't have a huge online presence, but he's been in the space just as long as all of us. And it's exciting. He's Bitcoin only focused. He's focused on literally what Bitcoin can do to change the world. And we're getting the message out there. That'll be September 23rd and 24th in Columbus, Ohio. So it's bringing Bitcoin to the Midwest. So we'll talk a little bit more offline about that. Definitely want to get you in connection with Andrew. I think you'd enjoy chatting with him, and he'd love some of the messaging of what you're doing. But maybe that's on the radar. So.
Well, I'd love to meet Andrew and see if I can support in any way. That'd be cool.
Where can people follow you? So we shared your website. I'll have in the description links to your X account and your website. Mm-hmm. Are those really the places you would want people to learn about what you're doing?
Yeah, so I hang out on X. Just at the Solo Mining Co. on X. Obviously, my WhatsApp number's on the site. If you want to bother me, you're welcome to. Just X all the way, really. I don't use Facebook anymore. I can't. X all the way.
Fair enough. And Jeff and I will have to reconnect once those Nano Ghost editions show up. Jeff, any final comments for our show?
No, I'm just very inspired, Duncan. I believe that everybody, whether or not they know it or not, is going to eventually have a Bitcoin miner in their house doing something. So keep at it, man. Godspeed, and can't wait to reconnect with you, bro.
Excellent. Well, guys, thank you so much for having me this evening. Genuinely, really glad that I know you both, and excited to see you guys again. Excited for just excited for. I'm excited for you guys and your growth, and you guys are awesome. So thank you.
Appreciate you joining us this morning. I know it's the evening out there. It looks like it's getting a little darker out there because of the light from the window, but. Appreciate you jumping on in. I'd love to tell all our viewers anytime we have a conversation about Bitcoin on the Bitcoin Beat that if you don't have any Bitcoin, get off of zero. But if you do have Bitcoin, keep stacking sats. We'll see you guys on the next one. Enjoy, everybody.